Okay, I want you to imagine something for a sec. Picture that. It's January 2026.
Right.
You're heading out to the local movie theater. Maybe it's a Tuesday night. You just need to get out of the house.
Sure, craving that popcorn.
Exactly. Walk into the lobby. You get that smell of, butter and vaguely clean carpet.
The best.
And you look up at the big digital marquee to see what's playing. And
Weird is putting it lightly in this scenario.
right. You look at the listings for the new stuff, the big modern blockbusters that cost a fortune.
$300 million ones
that have been all over your social media feed for a month, and the theater's playing. They're basically ghost towns.
You might see like 5 people in a 400-seat auditorium. It's brutal.
But then you look over the listing for Theater 6, and it's sold out.
Completely.
Not just sold out, it's so packed that the manager's scrambling. They've had to open up Theater 7 and then Theater 8 just to handle the overflow.
It's a stampede.
It's a stampede. And what is this movie? What's this cultural event causing this massive demand in 2026? It's not the new superhero thing. It's not the next Avatar.
No, it's a movie that came out 25 years ago.
It sounds like a glitch in the Matrix.
Or a fever dream. But it's a very real, very specific phenomenon that we're going to be analyzing today.
We're talking about the theatrical re-release of Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Ring, The Fellowship of the Ring.
And not just the regular version either.
No, and this is a crucial detail. We're talking about the extended edition.
Which is, what, 3.5 hours long?
At least. 3.5-hour fantasy epic from 2001 that is apparently eating modern Hollywood's lunch.
It's just wild.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And to help us understand not just why this is happening, but what it says about the state of the film industry in 2026, we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating, and I have to say, pretty blistering commentary.
Okay.
It's by the science fiction and fantasy author John Del Aro. The piece is titled Modern Hollywood Humiliated by Sold-Out Fellowship of the Ring Re-Release.
Wow. Okay, so that title does not pull any punches.
It does not. And that aggressive tone is really the vibe of the entire analysis. It's important to know who Del Aro is here. He's not just a random commentator.
Right, he's in the business.
He's the creator himself. He writes The Adventures of Baron von Mondla. So he's looking at this whole situation through the lens of a storyteller who is, frankly, frustrated.
He's seeing the success of this old movie and comparing it to what he thinks is the failure of the current.
Exactly. And so our mission today is to unpack that comparison. This isn't just going to be a nostalgia trip. We need to figure out why this 2001 film is hitting so hard in 2026.
And if we follow the source's argument, we need to figure out what modern Hollywood has supposed forgotten.
Forgotten about storytelling, about pacing, about trusting the audience.
And maybe, most importantly, forgotten about what gives a story its heart.
So let's set the scene a little more, because the way this source describes the film industry in early 2026, it's bleak.
It's grim. Yeah. If we look at the context Del Aro lays out, he says the previous year, 2025, was a complete financial disaster.
Not just a bad quarter.
Oh, no. He uses the phrase hemorrhaging. We're talking about franchises that were supposed to be too big to fail, just completely collapsed, major hanking.
He paints a picture of an industry in a total tailspin.
Right. And you know how it usually goes. When the box office slump, the studios have their list of exes already.
Oh, yeah. It's the economy, or people are still weird about the pandemic.
Right, the classic. Gen Z just wants to watch TikTok.
They don't have the attention span for a real movie anymore. We've all heard it.
Right. But then smack in the middle of all this doom and gloom, The Lord of the Rings comes back for this limited run.
And the reaction isn't just a few millennials showing up for a nostalgia hit.
No, it's a voracious, that's the word. Del Aro actually talks about his own experience trying to get...
He couldn't get in.
Well, he couldn't get the seats he wanted because multiple showings were already sold out across his entire area. He said the theater had to open up 3 separate screens at the same time just to handle the demand.
3 screens for one movie, a 25-year-old movie.
Think about this. This is a movie that basically everyone owns.
Right. I probably own it on 3 different formats. It's on like 5 streaming services right now. You can watch it on your phone.
And that's a huge point the source makes. We have these giant TVs at home now. Incredible system. Our living rooms are better than theaters were 20 years ago.
So why go out?
Because, he argues, people are craving that shared experience, that epic energy you only get in a dark room with 100 other people.
He mentions the clapping, right?
Yeah, he said he went back to see The Two Towers as well, and at the end, the whole audience burst into applause like it was 2002 again.
I love that. It's like you're not just watching a film, you're stepping into a time machine. Back to a time when a movie could actually unite a room.
You're all sharing that gasp or that laugh.
You're all in it together.
But the source argues it's more than just nostalgia. This is where the critique gets really sharp. He frames this success as a direct humiliation for the modern studio executive.
Humiliation, that's a strong word.
It is. He says audiences are voting with their wallets. They're not staying home because they hate movies. They're They're staying home because they hate bad movies.
So this whole death of cinema narrative is just a myth.
According to Del Arroz, yeah. He looks at those sold-out crowds for Fellowship and says, the problem isn't the audience, the problem is the product.
He uses the word slop, I think.
He does, a very visceral word. His argument is that people are starving for quality, and when you give it to them, even if it's 25 years old, they will show up in droves.
So it's basically the audience screaming, we have money, we want to go to the movies, just make something worth seeing.
That's the indictment, and that leads us to the big question of why. What makes Lord of the Rings so different? And the first place the source looks is, well, it's the runtime.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really counterintuitive.
Right.
Because if you talk to any studio exec today, what's the #1 rule?
Keep it short. Keep it moving.
Get to the action.
Yeah.
The modern belief is that attention spans are shot. The source says they want 90-minute movies, maybe 2 hours tops.
And you need that big action hook in the first 10 minutes or you've lost them. They're terrified of letting the audience get bored.
And then here comes the Fellowship of the Ring, strolling in at 3.5 hours long.
For the extended edition, yeah. And it has a structure that, by today's standards, is completely, quote, unmarketable.
Unmarketable.
That's his word. He says if you pitched the structure Fellowship as a new story to a studio today, you'd be laughed out of the office.
So let's actually break down that structure, because the source gives some really specific examples of this slowness that Hollywood would never allow now.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. The prologue.
Galadriel's voiceover.
Yep. It is 17 minutes long.
17.
17 minutes of narration, history, flashbacks to the Second Age. It's all world building before you even get to the Shire.
In a modern movie, if you haven't had a car chase or an explosion by minute 5, the producers are literally getting hives.
They're looking at their watches, yeah. The source argues a modern studio would cut that prologue down to nothing, maybe a 90-second montage with some quick cut.
Because they'd assume the audience can't handle exposition.
They'd think it's too dense, too much lore. But Del Arroz's point is that those 17 minutes are absolutely essential. They're not filler.
They're the foundation.
Exactly. Without that history lesson, the ring is just a magic ring.
It's just a piece of jewelry.
Right. But after 17 minutes, you understand its history, you understand Sauron, you understand the stakes, you feel the weight of this world's past.
And it doesn't get faster after that either. We don't suddenly jump into an orc battle.
Nope. We go straight to the Shire for 40 minutes.
40.
Almost 40 minutes of just hanging out with Hobbit.
Watching fireworks, listening to Bilbo's birthday speech, Gandalf bumping his head.
Smoking pipe weed, talking about salted pork. So gentle.
It's cozy, it's charming. But a modern studio editor would have a heart attack. They'd be asking, do we really need to see Sam gardening? Can't Frodo just find the ring and start running?
And the source says, no, absolutely not. This is where he talks about the difference between stakes and filler.
Oh, okay.
Modern Hollywood, he argues, sees all that character stuff as filler. It's the boring part you have to get through to get to the next CGI fight.
But Jackson and Tolkien understood that the Shire sequence is the whole reason we care.
Yes. You have to love what's being risked. If you don't spend 40 minutes falling in love with the peace and beauty of the Shire, you don't feel any real dread when the Black Riders show up. You don't understand what Frodo is fighting to save.
It makes the stakes personal, not just abstract. You're trying to save that pub, that garden.
Precisely. And then, just when you think, okay, now the adventure starts, we get to Rivendell, and the movie slows down again.
For the Council of Elrond.
Which the source calls out as one of the most brilliant scenes in the film. And what is it when you strip it down?
It's 20 minutes of people sitting in a circle talking.
Just talking. No action, no big visual spectacle, just incredible dialogue and act.
But it's totally riveting.
It's riveting because, as the source points out, that scene does something modern scripts often fail. It earns every single character's motive.
It's not just, you're the good guys, go fight the bad guy.
No, you see Boromir's desperation for his... You see the ancient distrust between Legolas and Gimli. You see Aragorn's profound reluctance. It's all laid bare.
So by the time Frodo says, I will take the ring, you feel the weight of it, and you understand why each of the others says, I will help you.
You know what it costs them. The source argues that a modern script would slice that scene down to 5 minutes of exposition and then rush off to the next.
Because they don't trust the audience.
That's the core of it right there. Del Arroz's central argument is that The Lord of the Rings works because it respects the viewers. It assumes you have the patience to follow a complex
It's like the difference between a chef who prepares a complex, multi-course meal.
and a chef who just keeps shoving spoonfuls of sugar in your mouth because they're afraid you'll get bored and leave.
That's a great analogy, and that leads directly to the next big point he makes, which is about action versus emotional weight.
Yeah, the modern formula, as he calls it.
So break that down for him. What does he see as the modern blockbuster form?
Well, According to his analysis, it's all about front-loading the act. You need constant stimulation, what he calls exhausting spectacle.
So like a big fight scene every 20 minutes, whether the story needs one or not.
Exactly. The pacing is just frantic, it's breathless, it's designed to keep you from ever looking at your phone.
But the weird result of that is that it actually becomes boring.
It does. It's just visual noise. If everything is an explosion, then nothing feels special. It just numbs.
Now contrast that with Fellowship.
It's the complete opposite. The source points out that the first full hour of that movie has almost no action at all.
It's all walking, talking, hiding from Nazgul.
World building. But because Jackson exercises that restraint, when the action finally does happen, it hits you like a ton of bricks.
And the main example he uses is the Mines of Moria.
Right. He argues that sequence is absolutely thrilling, but not just because the Balrog looks amazing, which it does, it still holds up.
Oh, it's incredible.
But it works because we've spent 90 minutes getting to know and love these characters first. We've seen them struggle, we've seen them bond.
So when they're trapped in that tomb and you hear those drums,
your heart actually starts pounding. You're not just watching characters in danger, you're scared for them. It's earned tension.
It's not just loud noises mean something scary is happening.
And then, of course, that leads to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm.
You shall not pass.
I mean, it's iconic, one of the greatest scenes in film history, period.
No question.
But the source asks why it's so iconic. It's not just a wizard fighting a demon. The raw, emotional power of Gandalf's sacrifice.
He comes from everything that came before.
Everything. It's derived from seeing him mentor Frodo, from his leadership, from his kindness, from the respect the others have.
When he falls and says, "Fly, you fools," it just shatters you.
Yeah.
Because you know what he means to all of them. He was the glue.
And the source argues that without all that slow setup, without the 40 minutes in the Shire, without the Council of Elrond, that scene would just be cool special effect. It would be a spectacle.
But it wouldn't make you cry.
It wouldn't leave a mark on you. And that, he says, is the fatal flaw of so much modern content. They want that viral emotional moment without doing any of the patient character work to earn it.
They want the payoff without the setup.
Exactly.
Okay, so this brings us to what is probably the most charged part of the source's analysis. We have to get into the culture war aspect of his art.
Right. And we should be very clear here. Our goal is to report on what the source is saying, to analyze his perspective.
Absolutely. Because John Del Arroz has a very, very specific viewpoint here, and he does not hold back.
He frames this whole thing as a conflict between traditional storytelling and what he sees as modern political.
Yeah, he explicitly calls out shows like Game of Thrones and The Wheel of Time.
He does. He refers to certain recent fantasy adaptations as, and this is a direct quote, modern, degenerate, woke fin.
Wow.
So that's his terminology. His core critique is that he believes modern Hollywood has shifted its priorities away from towards what he calls diversity quotas, political messaging, and DEI.
So his argument is that the industry is putting a political message ahead of the actual story.
That's the heart of it. He accuses them of intentionally subverting traditional stories and heroes because they're uncomfortable with the idea of classical heroism. He thinks they want to make everything cynical and gray.
And he contrasts that directly with what Peter Jackson did. Now, he does admit that Jackson's movies aren't a perfect one-to-one adaptation of the books, right?
Oh, yeah. He's clear on that. He knows characters were changed, plot lines were cut. The most famous, of course.
Tom Bombadil.
Tom Bombadil is nowhere to be found.
A great tragedy for some, a huge relief for others.
Right. But Del Arroz argues that even with those changes, Jackson was fundamentally faithful to the spirit of vision, and most important.
Let's dig into those themes, because this is where the source goes really deep. This is the stuff that he says makes it more than just an action.
He starts with the idea of clear morale. The story has clear heroes and clear villains, not trying to deconstruct or apologize for the idea of evil. It embraces.
But then he goes deeper into the religious aspects.
He does. We know Tolkien was a devout Catholic, and he saw his work as fundamentally religious. Del Arroz argues that Jackson, whether intentionally or not, preserved that Catholic world films.
And he brings up a specific concept here.
Yes, the Via Dolorosa.
Which means the way of suffering.
Exactly. It refers to the path Christ walked to the cross. The source makes the case that Frodo's entire journey is framed as Via. It's a path of immense suffering that leads to salvation.
That's a fascinating way to look at it, because most modern hero stories are power fantasy.
Right. The hero gets stronger, they learn a new skill, they get a better suit of armor, they level up.
Luke Skywalker learns the Force, Tony Stark builds a better suit.
But what happens to Frodo? He gets weaker, he gets sicker, the ring is physically and spiritually destroying him with every step he takes.
So it's not a power fantasy, it's a sacrifice fantasy.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's about self-abnegation, not self-actualization. He's not finding himself, he's losing himself to save everyone else.
Yeah, that feels incredibly anthem.
It is. And the source also points to the themes of mercy and pity. You know, Gandalf's line about Bilbo's pity ruling the fate of many.
Right, the decision not to kill Gollum.
And that ends up being the single most important decision in the entire story. These are deeply spiritual. Great providence, the idea that good triumphs not just through strength, but passion.
And the source's speculation is that a modern studio would get rid of all that.
His argument is that they'd see it as outdated baggage. They'd see the religious themes as something to be stripped out to make it more secular, more modern.
And what would be left?
He says you'd be left with a hollow action film with no...
So in his view, the sellout crowds in 2026 are proof that audiences are actually craving that soul. They want stories about sacrifice and redemption, not just cynicism.
That's the takeaway. It's about sincerity. Lord of the Rings is an incredibly sincere film. It's not ironic. It doesn't wink at the audience about how silly elves and wizards are. It believes in its own magic.
Okay, so let's move from the spiritual to the physical. The source also talks a lot about why the movie just feels so...
Oh yeah, the production itself. It's a huge point of contrast. Because you watch it today, in 2026, and it honestly looks better than some blockbuster last.
It's that sense of reality. The source compares the on-location filming to modern green screen production.
He's talking about New Zealand, of course.
The real Middle-earth.
He emphasizes that the cast and crew spent months out in these remote, rugged locations. They weren't just driving to a studio lot in Hollywood.
Right. They weren't standing in an air-conditioned room in front of a green wall pretending to climb a mountain.
They were actually climbing a mountain, wading through swamps, dealing with rain and snow. And the source argues that you can feel that physical hardship
when you see the Fellowship trudging through the snow on the Pass of Karaj.
They're actually cold. That's not just acting, the exhaustion on their face. And that translates to the audience. You feel the grit, the mud, the sheer scale of the journey.
It grounds the fantasy.
It does. And you can't talk about that reality without talking about the cat. The source gives a few shout-outs.
He starts with Elijah Wood, right?
Yeah, he calls him the emotional anchor of the whole trilogy. He points out how subtle Wood's performance is, how he shows the growing burden of the ring, not through big, but through the look in his eyes.
The slow erosion of his innocence.
Exactly. And then, of course, Ian McKellen as Gandalf.
The perfect Gandalf.
The source describes his performance as having an authority that feels earned, not imposed. He's powerful, but he's also wise and compassionate. He feels like a real person, not just an archetypal wizard.
And then there's Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn, and the source has to bring up the story.
Oh, you have to. It's the law.
I think every fan knows this one.
It's the helmet story. In The Two Towers, when Aragorn thinks Merry and Pippin have been killed,
he kicks that Uruk-hai helmet
and lets out this scream of pure anguish.
And the reason it's so real is because he actually broke his toe kicking it.
He broke 2 toes. And instead of yelling cut, he channeled that real physical pain directly into Aragorn's emotion. He used it.
And why does the source bring that specific anecdote up?
He uses it as the ultimate example of the cast's commitment. This wasn't just a job for them. They were embodying these characters. Mortensen was living in the mud. He learned Elvish. He'd do his own sword fighting.
Yeah.
He bought the horse he rode in the movie.
That's incredible.
That's the level of dedication he's talking about. And it all contributes to that feeling that Middle-earth is a real, lived-in place.
Not just a digital backdrop for a bunch of action scenes.
Right, because they built Hobbiton for real, because they were out in those mountains, because the actors were so committed. You believe in the world. It has a history, a culture. It feels solid.
Okay, so we've got the patient pacing, the deep themes, the grounded production. It all adds up. So what's the final verdict? What's the lesson that Delaros thinks Hollywood should be learning from this?
Well, he brings it all back to the business case. Remember, he starts by saying 2025 was a financial catastrophe.
Hemorrhaging money.
And his conclusion is brutally simple. Hollywood failed in 2025 because it made bad movies nobody wants to see.
It's not a complicated formula in his eyes.
Not at all. Make good movies, people will come. Make slop, and they'll stay home. And this sold-out re-release is Exhibit A that audiences are, in his words, hungry for quality.
They're not tired of movies. They're tired of bad movies.
Exactly. And this is where he takes a sledgehammer to the attention span.
This is a huge point.
It's a huge one. The industry has convinced itself that our brains have been ruined by TikTok, and we can't focus on anything for more than 30 seconds.
And yet here are audiences sitting rapt for 3.5 hours on a weeknight.
And they're loving every second. They're not on their phone. Because, as the source argues, the story justifies the run.
The attention span isn't the problem. The engagement is the problem.
That's it. If a movie is boring, 5 minutes. If it's captivating, 4 hours isn't it.
So the final takeaway is that Lord of the Rings succeeds by doing everything that modern Hollywood thinks is a mistake.
It's slow, it's sincere, it's long, it has complex, even religious themes. It trusts the audience, and it's winning.
It's winning where the modern formula is failing.
It's a pretty powerful case study. Seeing a 25-year-old film come back and, to use his word, humiliate the current slate of movies, that's a statement.
It really is.
Yeah.
It proves that great storytelling is time. It doesn't have an expiration.
Trends change, technology gets better, but a good story.
So we've broken down the source's whole argument here. The
Yeah.
pacing, the themes, the respect for the audience. But I want to leave everyone listening with one last question to think about.
Okay.
If this source is right, if the blueprint for success is sitting right there in plain sight, if the box office data from this re-release proves that audiences will show up for slow, sincere, high-quality storytelling, why is the industry so resistant to doing it?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Is it just fear? Is it that the system is just too big to change course? Or is it something else? Is the industry's refusal to learn the specific lesson, the lesson that trusting your audience is actually profitable? Is that refusal the real tragedy here?
Are they so committed to their current formula that they would rather failing than admit that the old way might have been better?
It's definitely something to think about next time you see a sold-out sign for an old movie next to an empty theater for a new one.
It really is.
Thanks for this. This was a great deep dive.
Anytime. It was a pleasure.